And look, we're live, just the way
Outstanding.
it's supposed to be. Welcome. You're watching Goal Chat Live, and I'm Deborah Eckerling, author of Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals, and founder of the Deb Method, which is my system for goal setting simplified. I am so excited today because we're talking about one of my favorite topics. And I realize I say one of my favorite topics a lot, so that just means I've got a lot of favorites. But now I get to talk about one of my favorite topics with one of my favorite people, and you get to meet him. But before we dive into introducing my special guest today, so as I said before, I'm Deborah Eckerling, top goal setting expert, and I lead the Goal Chat Twitter chat every Sunday night. And then Mondays, we take a closer look with an expert. And today's expert is I want to say community rah-rah, but community evangelist, Keith Spiro, and community builder. And Keith and I are friends from my Tuesday night international Zulas. And there's no better person to talk about outreach than Keith. So Keith, welcome. And why don't you introduce yourself better than I just did? Because I kind of, you're so
now.
many things, but you're so many things. You are photojournalist, you're company evangelist, you're let's work together to make things better type go-to. And I'm sure you can add a little bit more to that. So go.
Well, thank you. And I'm happy to be here. And the easiest way to explain what I do, because I do wear a lot of hats, and I kind of boiled it down to business strategist and community builder. And what I help do is create strategies to build communities around organizations and concepts that make a big difference in the world these days. So outreach, reaching people, photojournalism, all of those are just aspects of what I've been doing after a 25-year sales and marketing and communications career, and having a blast.
So tell me, what is it about the community aspect that you love so much?
Well, it's ever since social media and social business took over some 10 years ago, we've moved into a world with so much technology changing so quickly that nobody can do it alone anymore. It used to be manuals. You'd get a computer, you'd buy a new toy, and there was a book, how to assemble it. Today, your phone changes every time you upload or download the latest features and apps, and there's no instruction book to go with it. So how do you find out what to do? And our whole world has gone that way now. And so the opportunity is great, and the work is spread out over a lot more people if you have friends, if you make connections, and you build a community of like-minded people to help accomplish your goals.
Well, and you know my feeling, you can't achieve your goals on your own. You need your people. And when we were talking about topics, I remember I said, so Keith, what do you want to talk about? So why, in what way is outreach like the bucket of everything?
Well, that's the outreach is just flip the words around, right? Reaching out is what it's all about. And most of us are terrified to do that. We're off stage and I'm saying, I really don't want to talk because you're going to ask me questions I don't know the answers to, and until you get me comfortable or relaxed, you may not get the information you really want, whether it's me or a business prospect or a new friendship. And so most people needed that in-person time and the wallflowers and meetings, the odd people who we'd like to hide in corners and blend in. And now what do you do during the time of a pandemic with quarantines everywhere where you can't go out? So unless you reach out to somebody, you're going to have a much more difficult time growing a business, looking for a job, any number of things. So it's very, I'm seeing the screen comes up, outreach is reaching out. It's true. And it makes a difference, big difference.
Well, and so we met on Jeff Pulverzula back in over the summer,
Correct.
right?
We
And
did.
it was one of those, the method is you meet, I think this person is cool. And then you have another conversation. And we've been having weekly conversations, I think, ever since, which is good because you find your people, you want to help those relationships to blossom. But before we go backwards and forwards, because I think we're still in getting Keith comfortable in being the interviewee rather than the interviewer mode. It's really funny because today somebody who I had interviewed several times was interviewing me. So I was like, the yin yang to this conversation earlier today, but it's fun. It's fun. Trust me.
Oh, I'm fine. I do trust you. For 6 months or so, as we've been in the Zulas, we've almost never been in the same breakout room because each of us host rooms filled with other people. So it's kind of unique in this respect too.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah. And so today we get to talk and we get to let other people listen. And Lorraine, who's one of my regulars in the Right On group, is here. So hello. Thank you so much for joining today. And so, but I want to do one more question to get you comfortable before we jump into more about the outreach.
Sure.
What did you cook this weekend?
What did I cook this weekend? Chinese food, mugu gai pan, a
Mm-hmm.
ginger and scallion with a lo mein,
Okay.
and some fried rice.
Excellent. And so, which was the best part of the meal?
Anything with ginger. So the ginger and scallion part has just such an incredibly it's a burst of energy and flavor that comes out of cooking ginger.
Excellent. And was there any baking involved on the weekend?
There was indeed. We put together our Sunday morning special for the family when our most delightful baker in chief, all of 11 years old, comes in and takes over our kitchen.
And so, but you're having conversations over the food, right?
Yes,
So outreach in the home as opposed to outreach into the universe, but it's all the same type of conversation, right?
very much so.
Excellent. So now that I've made the leap from, food to life to food, so in the simplest terms, what is outreach? And if you're watching and you want to chime in with your opinion, we had such a hearty goal chat on this last night as well. So in its simplest terms, how do you define it?
So I do define outreach as reaching out. I think it's important to reach out to people you know. It's nice to refresh friendships that if you don't see people regularly, but just as importantly, reaching out to people you don't know. And that's one of the key differences that I'm happy to talk about tonight and source some of that in last night's chat. I mean, there was some very interesting comments that came up as people defined how to improve your outreach. How do you do it? What do you need to do? And how do you use it? It's meeting people, it's refreshing those relationships, and finding people with similar interests to expand your network. And I don't do it just for expanding network. For me, it's about helping others or putting together that next project.
So if we were talking mission statements, that's really your mission.
Yes, sure. My mission has been to help people be seen, be heard, and be found. And I started that about 10 years ago, and it's just grown exponentially since then.
Be heard and be found. Okay. And so how do you live it in your life? How do you live that mission? Do you have a good example?
A good example.
Or a bad example. I don't care.
I'll give
It's
you a
gonna
bad
be
example.
good.
No, really, the examples happen every day when you go out online. We have moved to social media platforms. I'm on LinkedIn regularly. I'm on Twitter. I like that as one of my more favorite platforms to work with. And what starts is somebody putting something up that's of interest to you. You get to like their comment, you get to reply to it, or you get to amplify it in some way, shape, or form. And that is the simplest way to start in that conversation of how I'll meet people. Oh, you're doing something interesting. And sometimes I just say, I like that too. And if they respond back, there's a conversation. You can find people's bio and background very quickly online. But as a person who's moved into business strategist, community builder, my role's pretty easy. I like to help amplify other people's messages, which is why this conversation's hard. You're putting me on the spot and asking what I do, what I like. I like to be helpful. And I've had several good careers doing that. So it's been a lot of fun, from sales and marketing to communication jobs.
But it's this simple, because I'm all about
Yes.
the simplified, like, reply, or amplify, or all the above in your best case scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's say, because I think we should just jump ahead. What do you say to those people who are shy about it?
Ah. Shyness and fear of, what happens when you reach out, right? Do you get rejected? Do people ignore you? The worst that happens is you get no response back. And then, now what do? You sit there and you worry, or you just write them off and you go on to something else. But it's not hard to reach out now, and probably easier than ever before. And I think that's a big difference. We just, on March 11th, completed 1 full year since the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. And because of that, all the old rules are off. And I talk about not only the gatekeepers being gone, but the old barriers have gone down just as quickly with that. So whether you are an outgoing person and have to find your audience because it's all online, or you're shy and even, I wouldn't say terrified, but you're just not comfortable getting out there and starting a conversation, the fact is everyone's in the same boat and everyone is in the same level playing field. You see it on Zoom calls, you see it in conversations. Cats, dogs, pets go walking across screens. Nobody's wearing a suit and tie anymore. All kinds of things, calls in the background, things crash. We're no longer as formal as we used to be, nor do we try to keep that facade of this is a very professional. And some businesses do, and some may carry it off well, but authenticity is lost if you try to put on airs. And so to a shy person, the answer is just go out there and say hello. And you can do that by just starting by liking something that someone else has posted. Simple as that.
Oh, and that's just it's like the first step. It's like the gateway step after lurking.
Yes.
Is to just like something.
It's true. Lurk, then like, and then speak.
Lurk, like, speak. I think that's awesome. I think you just came up with like a new system. And the other part, which is you were talking about, is the genuineness, the authenticity. Prior to a year from now, rewind, a year ago, there was no way I would ever do any sorts of call without like perfection. And now, granted, this is a live show, so I do my what do you call it? I put my face on, put my lenses on, whatever. But for like one-on-one meetings, I wear my glasses. I'm not as formal, and there's the balance. I have my public me and my personal public.
Yes,
the different shades, right?
Right. And that's the change. That's the change that's happened that's so very, very real. There used to be the public persona and there was the private life. But when your business life, your private life, and your public life all take place in the same 10 by 10 business office, studio, cramped attic in your house, you reach a point where you finally just go, forget about it. This is me. This is what I look like. This is real. And I think there's something very exciting about that. And again, we talk about the Zula. How many of us in that group started off as shy people who did not talk a lot? Most of that group.
Okay, but not us. Well, not me.
You can excuse yourself from it, but no, I always felt comfortable when Jeff would talk about the odd people hiding in the corners, and then you get into a room like that and you realize everybody in this group is unique.
Right. It is definitely, and Jeff's been on the show and a few other. I usually, at least once a month, I'll have a delegate from Zula.
Well, there's a format that's been created. When you look at these changes that have happened, as all of these separate windows on the world have become one, you're able to go and say, if this is who I am and where I am, I'm not going to hide that fact. So when's the last time you traveled overseas, Keith? Been a year? Been more than a year? Go out to eat much? No.
Nope.
Drive through, drive in, right? And so everyone is in that same position, which I think makes it easier for people today who are not comfortable doing those things to move forward. And if they really want help, well, there are people like you and me out here all the time. I mean, one of the things I did, I pivoted from being in businesses to creating Keith Spiro Communicast, which is a community broadcast talking about the great things that good people are doing in our communities. I can't go out and do interviews. I don't want to be in the same room indoors with somebody for 2 hours that I don't live with. And
Right?
so I took Zoom in a similar fashion as Jeff did to a new way to introduce people to their community without ever leaving my house. And perfect case in point, I got to meet a couple of people in our Zoom meetings with Jeff, one of whom lives a few blocks from me.
Yes.
How does that
Well, I think it happens when you're out there and you're aware of your surroundings. So it's not
happen?
just that there's a step between lurking and liking. And that's kind of looking around. So it's not just you here. It's you and other people. I love how you're talking about we're all in the same boat, because I think we kind of forget. I think it's really easy to play the little grass is always greener game and say, oh, well, that person, they must be this, they must be that. You don't know. But what you do know is for the last year, this has been the way to meet people. And I, like you, think it's a wonderful opportunity, because I could have never met as many people in 1 year if
Right.
I was just going out to meet people.
And it's an amazing a number of opportunities that exist because you had to physically be somewhere to get to events. You know, I look at this with some of the orchestras. I did some photographic work for New Hampshire Philharmonic for a few years. And during the pandemic, they want to do something for Valentine's Day. How do you do that? Well, they brought together the musicians, the orchestra section, because they didn't want anybody blowing and moving air around. So you had the
Right.
strings. But they projected that. And of course, you get an audience that can come from far outside the physical geography of where they're based. And that is mind boggling when you think that today, this conversation we're having can be broadcast and seen anywhere in the world. And that
Any
opportunity changes huge.
Anywhere, anytime, continuing. And this Goal Chat Live came out of
Right.
out of out of pandemic world, because I've been leading my chat for many years, and I toyed with doing the live, but then I got an email from Brenda. Hey, do you want to do a live show of your Twitter chat? Okay, because when I think it goes back to knowing your mission. When you know your mission, what you want to bring into the world,
Right.
you see the opportunities, and
And it's
that's
gratifying. And that's, you know, again, going back to how do you help people who are less comfortable than you and I have become? We've both been doing this for a year now. And for 10 years prior to that, I was creating many things. So I like, I see the comment that's come up, lurk. So being creepy is good. No, I heard Deb very clearly say there's a step between liking and lurking. And that step is the transition to trust.
I like that transition to now. I put Tommy Burke's quote up. Tommy is a friend of mine, a friend, a client, longtime Deb fan, for lack of a better word, right, Tommy? But you're right. It's the difference is it's like dipping your toe in the water before you run into a cannonball. Now, Tommy is probably the cannonball type. Am I wrong? I don't think so. But it's that the step is the trust.
Right.
And the other thing that I think is really important is, so Tuesday Night Zula is my must event. So every Tuesday night, usually in classes the end of a long day, I don't care. This is my my reset button. And what you can do is discover, explore, and see what, maybe give something a week or two of a trial. And if you don't fit, you can either try it again in a month or just find a different group of your peeps. It's just because something works for one person doesn't mean it works for everybody. So I think that there's the balance between being married to, oh, my friend said this is the best group ever, and sticking with it even if it doesn't fit, and trying different things.
When I did training classes, one of the things I looked at for helping people be able to speak in front of groups or do business presentations or for nonprofits, right? How do you stand up and ask for money, ask for volunteers? And the answer is the digital world is parallel to what was the in-person world. So you start with that liking or looking, right? You're in the background. You don't want to stand up and raise your hand. You simply say, that sounds good. Ooh, I like that. That sounds good. And you just stay quiet, right? And as you learn the tone of the room, the tone of the conversation, it's like the goal chat last night, right? I came in early, but I waited to make comments until I got a sense of who's there and how, what I'm an outsider, hadn't been there before. So you kind of mimic the behaviors that are set, and that's where a good host makes a huge difference. And as those behaviors move along, you feel more comfortable adding a piece. And people might go, "Who's this?" I don't know Tommy, but you did, and you made a comment. But I saw the creepy word, and it's now I'm gonna refute that instantly, because you can be creepy in how you do things. But anybody new on the bus for the first time going to school, what do you tell your kid? And anyone first time walking into a conference who doesn't know anybody, you kind of get a feel for the room, the sounds. You nod your head a lot. If you're doing this, you move into another corner of the room because you're not with the right people. And eventually you finally go, I have something to say. And you say it. And if they don't bite your head off, you continue to talk. And so you find your way through there. And that's that transition, because not only are you building trust in yourself, but the room or the group or online are turning and listening, and you either get a comment or not. I have 3 new people that followed me on Twitter based on last night's conversation. And 2 of them I'm very excited, or all 3 of them actually, I'm excited about, because this one I really wanted to talk to. This one I'm interested in more of what they're doing. And that's how you transition from that shy, I'm on the outside, to I'm reaching out because there's something to talk about. There's something I can do.
And the point that you brought up, which is perfect, is outreach isn't just Zoom meetings. Meeting people, I've got my very active right on Facebook. I've got another group for people working through your goal guide. I've got my Twitter chat and a bunch of other groups that I'm involved in, not necessarily running. And my Twitter chat and other Twitter chats as well. I'm not that great. I do attempt to do one chat that's not mine a week, because that's how you meet new people and you find your peeps. But you don't have to be like physically present and on just to meet and connect with people. In your Twitter chat example from last night is perfect, because it's and what I love about my chat so much is there's so many people there. There are probably a half a dozen people who've been there. Once they discover it, they're always there every single week, and you know who you are. And then we get some new regulars, and we had, I think, 23 people last night, and maybe a handful of them have been to less than a handful of Twitter chats, but the topic spoke to them and they jumped in. So you don't know, but by going places and exploring new things, you have the opportunities for outreach in different places.
Absolutely. And I'd like to do a shout out here, because one of the quotes that really stood out in my mind, and so it's one of those I pinned and grabbed it so I would remember for later, but it's to IV. So Inavast, INAVAST, is the Twitter handle. And his comment, and I think it's a he's based in Toronto, so yay for the Canadians. Good friends, many of them. We talk about Canada a lot, don't we? But
we do indeed.
Very specific, and I thought very powerful, and it was reach out without any biases or assumptions. Be prepared to learn, be brave, and be tolerant. And that, to me, I'd like to take credit for that, but I won't. I'm going to keep it where it came from. I did drop one sentence in that tweet, but this really was the core of that conversation around outreach, timidity versus, are you confident reaching out? And I'll repeat it one more time, right? Reach out without any biases or assumptions. Be prepared to learn, be brave, and be tolerant. And I think that really encapsulates beautifully a lot of what we're talking about. How do you engage? How do you get started in those types of things?
I was looking for the tweet to put it in there, but I just put in the recap, which we'll have to do because you can see it there and you actually called it out. So I put in your tweet in the recap from that as well. But I want to jump back to Lorraine, who answered the question about why outreach is important. It's almost it's a similar but different thread, but it brings awareness to problems or things going on in our world. So learning about other people, other communities, etc. So I know it was a little bit of a stretch, but I like the quote and I wanted to bring it in to the conversation. Are you frozen or thinking?
No, I'm not. I'm waiting for your next. So now that you've put that non sequitur in, where do we go?
Where do we go? Well, so outreach is important because ... Fill in the blank. I know we covered this, but say it again while I grab the next question.
Well, it's important because it leads to engagement, it leads to relationships, it leads to conversations, it leads to new network friends, it leads to friendships potentially, business alliances. You know, anybody in sales as opposed to marketing sets the table, but it's the person who walks in and asks for something, whether it's a salesperson or a personality that is into, you know, call to action, big thing that everybody looks for today. But that's where the actual results begin. It's only at the point that you ask for something that you start to see change.
And I love the quote, when you don't ask, the answer is always no. Because it's true. If you don't ask,
If you don't ask, you don't know. KNOW. Because the answer might have been yes. But there's also people who will start, you don't want to do this, do you? No, you're right. I don't. Thank you. Goodbye.
Wait. Say again? I think you tangented on me a little. Oh, and our friend Bruce is here. Hi, Bruce.
Hey, Bruce. Oh, Bruce is one of my favorites. This is a man that makes stuff, sells stuff, and is very direct and very helpful to others. It's huge.
He is. And he was my guest last month. So when I put up the recap, I will link as well to my episode with Bruce, who, by the way, I mentioned when I was interviewed this morning in a group. I said, if you got a bunch of new people in your group today, Bruce, you're welcome. Anyway.
Yes.
So outreach, if you don't ask, no response is a no.
Well, if you don't ask, you don't know what that response would be. If you're asking a question for someone to do something, it's not the answer is no. There is no answer. You're assuming it's no, and you move on. And you may have missed a huge opportunity. So I take.
You edited me. That's okay.
I'm actually going to, yes, I'm going to call you on that, because no is KNOW versus NO. And that's what we're wrestling with right
No
here.
versus no. Okay. I will.
I'm an optimist. I'm positive.
I see your edit of me, and I will raise you the next question.
Excellent.
How does that sound?
I'm ready.
You've addressed this a little, but I don't think there's ever any way to not ask this question enough, which is how do you use outreach personally, and how has it benefited you? And if you're watching, either live or in the replay, if you have a great outreach story, please share it, because we want to hear it. So what is your favorite outreach benefit story?
Oh, there's so many. I wish I was prepared for this question, because I'm in the habit of reaching out when I want to accomplish something. So I've never had a problem calling at the CEO level of a company, but I don't do so randomly. I've done it because I've done my homework. I know the business. I know what my connection to it is. And because of that, I've met a lot of very interesting people over the years. And I don't want to it's not about name dropping. This is really, how did you use outreach to be successful? It's taking that chance to call. And today there's no excuse. You can't walk in blind on a conversation or expect to start a conversation if you don't know anything about the person you're approaching. So I do my homework. I go online, you do some research. If you have a problem with a company, and again, I've had some of those, and this is not a point to name anybody or anything, but the reality is, if you know what they care about, you know what's important to them, you can go on Twitter to their customer help group. You can reach out to a C-level person, CEO, CFO, right? Somebody in the leadership end of the business. And if you know what they care about, you will have an amazing conversation.
Oh, you know what that reminds me of? It's networking 101, really. It's when I started out doing a lot of articles, journalism,
Mhm.
freelancing. And the key really to starting any conversation is finding that common ground, that bit of rapport. And I remember that you want to talk about, let's go in the Wayback Machine. Um, I was interviewing a woman for an article and I saw where she went to, and I had a friend who had the same alma mater, and I said, "Hey, do you know so and so?" And she said, "Oh yes, we shared an ex-boyfriend." And that's how we started that conversation.
But that is a connection, right? That
Mm-hmm.
is so strong that you're either going to laugh about it or you're going to move on, but you won't forget it. And
And,
that's the other part of how do you use outreach, right? You
mm-hmm.
want to be memorable. The old school says, "Hi, look at me, let me show you when you see something you like." But it's really much more about memorable in a way that's useful to the other person. And
Oh, talk
you
more
get
about
me on
that. I
rant
love
very
that.
quickly. What's that?
No, I like that. Keep
Oh,
going.
yeah. So I was going to say, but that heads me towards the rant of, the stop me when you see something you like world of old style sales. Interruption selling. Interrupting doesn't help the person receiving it. The social media platforms where you go and post something and an ad is placed there, you're not building friendships. And, I thought as we talk about how you use outreach, people also want to know, well, how do you do it? How do you get started? And how does it become helpful to you? And we've taken a couple of those pieces right off the bat by talking about how you listen, you look, it is lurking, but then it's liking and it's moving on to the next step. But memorable, because I've seen that come up on the screen here as I'm talking, is something memorable to them, not to you. So if you don't put yourself in their shoes, why should I be listening to Keith right now? Why am I watching Deborah, right? Why did Bruce Jones just join us? It's any number of things. And that's really what I've built my business around once I left corporate, because it's helping people be seen, be heard, be found for a reason that's important. Because the right people, if you do this right, the right people will find you at exactly the right time for them when they need what you do.
That is,
You like that one?
well, I do
I live
because,
that. That's why I can say that so smoothly, because I live that every single day.
well, when people ask me, because I do get this question sometimes, because I do one-on-one coaching with clients, I help people,
Mm-hmm.
figure
Ask me
out
about that, right?
their path, right? And I have had people come to me 8 years later and said, "I heard you speak. I'm ready for you now."
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 8 year lag, while I always say it's a really funny business model, but you just proved that it's feasible,
And here's the
right?
power of the internet and of social networks is that accelerates the speed with which the right people find you for the right reasons at exactly the right time for them. Because used in its best light, if you're talking online, if you're blogging, if you're reaching out in conversations, you're leaving breadcrumbs. You're saying, this is what you do, this is who you are, this is what you care about. And I trust the algorithms to pull you into the right place. It will put you in front of that person because of something you've written, which is why writing books, writing blog posts are critical. And that's the coaching you and I both do with people, is how to move to that next step.
Absolutely. And my April theme, you know this. Did you do this on purpose? My
Nope.
April theme is storytelling. So we're going to cover podcasting and blogging and video because they're all different ways of releasing breadcrumbs. So there you go.
Right.
This is fun. Let's start. Let's give people some advice. Are you ready?
Sure.
What advice do you have for Improving outreach. Let's say, and we're going to give a bonus goal later, but we'll figure it out when it gets a little closer. What do you think? I mean, I think I'm not doing interruption marketing. I'm just finishing. I'm going to be paranoid forever from that comment, by the way. You're welcome. Let's start with because you address the people who are shy. So basically, if you're shy, lurk, look around, jump in, dip your toe in, and then do the cannonball. But like for regular people who are like, okay, I'm doing it, it's not working, I'm doing it wrong. Let's start with the answer to that question. For how do people who think they're doing outreach right, how can they do it better?
Now that you phrased it that way, I'm going to flip to the other side on you.
Oh no.
Because
okay, great.
If you're confident about what you're doing and it's not working, then I'll tell you that you're reaching out too often or too far or too hard. Because in this pandemic-driven small studio of mine, reaching out is very different than someone reaching in. And if I'm doing all of the reaching out, I'm not doing the right thing. So for people who are sitting, so you've moved from the quiet people on the sides to the people who are they in Clubhouse now? Are they in the middle of the conversation? Are they listening or are they learning? But as soon as you say it's not working, then as a consultant, as an advisor, I do executive coaching. I do a lot of work around workshopping for businesses and nonprofits that want to make a difference. And that's about the only way you can hire me these days is I'm working with companies that I think make a difference in health and community. And those are the two areas. So if you're in one of those two segments and it's not working, I'm going to flip that question back to them the same way I have to you just now, which is maybe it's not about outreach anymore. Maybe your mission statement isn't clear. Maybe you're in the wrong room, right? Because one of the things you have to know is where are your best allies going to be? Where are the people who care about what you care about? Are they on the platform that you've gone to? How do you find those things out? That's a whole list of questions that I could go on with, but that's kind of the entry step to what I've been doing for a good decade. And it's fun stuff, and it's not hard.
Okay, so you may not be following your mission, or you don't know your mission, or you might be in the wrong room. So if you're doing outreach and it's not working, you have to do the introspection step. Yes. Is what you're saying.
Yes.
See, this is my secret, because I want to get all the right nuggets when I do the replay. So that's why I comment with the quotes I like, and you see how much I'm commenting today. So clearly, we will have some fun narrowing things down. But I know this about me. It goes back to that mission. You said the M word, and the reason why people have trouble reaching their goals is they don't know what their goals are. They underthink them, they overthink them, they don't take the time to say, okay, I am me, I love this. This is what I want. And I think that's if you're throwing too much spaghetti at the wall, then you're going to have a mess.
How do you know when you've hit your goal? If you don't have a goal, you won't. You'll just keep going and going and going.
Okay, and if your outreach isn't working, you're just throwing too much spaghetti at the wrong walls. And you still have a mess. Okay, so we have the extremes. We've got if you're shy, dip your toe in. If you're doing too much and it's not working, take a step back, re-deb yourself, think about the end goal in mind. So let's do some middle of the road stuff. What are a few things people can do right now or tonight or after they finish to improve their outreach?
Can I give you my best tip first? Or are you going to come back and ask for another one later?
Well, how well you know me, my friend. You can start with your best tip, and we will go from there. That's
Okay.
perfect.
Because you're in the middle now. We started at one end, we covered the other end, and now how do you cover the middle ground? And to me, it's expecting that you will ask for a best tip. I thought about that in advance. And it is the subject of a book that I am in the process of writing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I knew that. I'm just
Of course you
I'm
did.
just trying to play off of you for,
But what makes it
dramatic
fun?
effect.
But what makes it fun is keeping it simple. Because really we've talked for some 40 minutes now, and there are people who have glommed onto certain concepts. Everybody's writing down the things that make the most sense to them, or they've like, now this doesn't cover my needs. It's not true enough, or it's not involved enough. So simple is where I would go with this, right? Absolutely. And so when you do that, you go online.
So your best tip is to keep it simple?
I'm going to give you more steps. It's all part of it. So
Excellent.
the best tip, because you asked very specifically, what do they do after they come off watching this event, whether they're here live now and they have a couple of hours to still do some work, or they come across this somewhere down the road and they say, oh, what's the best tip to do outreach better? And my answer is, in keeping it simple, go online to whatever you're currently using as your platform of preference, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, and just start liking items and things that you do care about, that you like, or people's comments, like the one that I quoted earlier, which I thought was one of the best that came out of last night's chat. If the people that you like and the comments that you like come back to you, they're going to come back because somebody cares. If they want to interact with you, they will. But as a minimum, the algorithm will remember what you like and will send you more things that you like. And so start simple. Start by liking things. If you feel a little braver, start to share them or reshare them with your own commentary on top. And you can also reply back. I'm only using the terms that you're going to find on the social media platforms that we use. So like, share, reply. And it's as simple as that, because if people are responding, then you're on the right path. And then we go to the Deb thing, right? Because if you've determined your mission and you're exploring your options and people are responding, you're on target.
This is you've like taken my simplify and you amplified my simplify. What a team.
Amplify the simplify and lurk and look. Lurking to looking and liking. There you go.
There we go. Like, share, reply, repeat. And it's I talk about the 15 minute. I seem to think that we had this conversation when we first started chatting. It's the do it in 15-minute increments. And if that's too much for you, do it in 5-minute increments. And set your timer and say, okay, I'm just going to explore and see what happens. Right?
Right. Absolutely. I think that's why we got along so quickly when we were introduced to each other. And these conversations have blossomed. The full conversation around this chat right now is that there are so many ways that you can take these relationships when you find people who are in your camp or support whatever it is you do that's different than where they exist. And that's the diversity part that makes life very interesting. That if I'll take one other quote that came out of last night that I thought was really interesting, if I can find it. And I had it here somewhere. Okay. It was the comment that said, be strategic and make it collaborative. And I wrote a note to myself after seeing that, because that's not where I come from. I help in a very different way because it's the disruptor world. And I said, be random and make it collaborative. Because the internet's really good at sending you things that you're going to click that you like. And more of the same is what's created many of the problems that are going on now, because people are in extreme camps. So rather than be strategic and make it collaborative, be random and make it collaborative, and you'll find different points of view that can make a difference.
Be random and make it collaborative. I like it because it's just, you can't keep, what is the definition of crazy? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Different result, yes.
Well, this is what your last statement, take it for whatever it's worth. That's what it means to me. You have to shake things up. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect the same results. If the results are good, then yes. But if you're struggling.
Right. And that was an earlier point that you made, right? Was in the struggle, what do you do? And there's your answer. That both of us are on both sides of that one.
Yes, absolutely. So what else? What didn't I ask? What else do you want to share? Do you want to talk about your book? Do you want to talk about your other project? Is there something really cool that you're working on that you feel that the audience here just has to know about?
Well, I think the best thing, because I'm living in the moment, you know, so what it is that I'm doing right now is where I put my focus. And then the next shiny object comes along, and you, in the consulting world, you go, oh, this is great, and you'll work on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the best guidance that I would give in sharing where I am and what I'm doing is go online and find me, right? You can reach me by email anytime, Keith at keithspiromedia.com. I'm happy to be found online under the Communicast label, and I can send you the link that you can post in the recap so you can see the video conversations I'm having. And my website is keithspiromedia.com.
And I have that here. And I think I even have Communicast, which I shared in here as well, right around, there it is. I love it when I remember stuff. So all of Keith's links are in the conversation, but they will be in the recap, and you can find the recap. Oh, I should put that link in. If you go to thedebmethod.com/blog, you can see the recap for this and for all my other fun Goal Chat Lives. And believe me, we have some good conversations. Keith was one of my guests when I decided that I was going to start 2021 in December. So he was part of my early New Year's party. So that will be in the recap as well, because that was fun. That actually,
and it was different. Yes.
Well, you talk about shaking things up and doing things different. When I started these, and I was interviewed on StreamYard last week about how I transitioned from my Twitter chat to my live show and how my live shows evolved. I think I did my first 2 live shows just me talking, and I'm like, nah, that's not going to work. I just need to talk to people. And then after about 6-7 months of doing that, I'm like, wouldn't it be fun to have more than one? In it, again, it's in the spirit of outreach. So I strategically take people from different aspects of my life who might not interact otherwise, because isn't that what you do when you have a party? Your worlds collide. And I just let my worlds collide and let other people watch. It's kind of fun.
And it works.
It's fun. So be sure, if this is your first time watching or you're just curious, so go to debmethod.com/blog and you can see the recaps. And if you are having challenges and you need to reassess your goals, you can go to yourgoalguidebook.com. We'll take you to the Amazon link, or you can, where did it go? Oh, there it is. We'll take you to the Amazon link, or go to your favorite bookstore or whatever. In the meantime, if you have any questions or challenges, or you need to build community, Keith definitely is your go-to awesome person. And again, it's keithspiromedia.com, and you can email him, and all this will be in the recap. I think the bonus goal is 5 minutes, 3 times a week of doing that liking thing. What do you think?
I'll say yes to that, as you can see behind me. My favorite piece of artwork, right? Yes.
Yes. You have the this, and I have the this. And it's pretty much the same.
Well, that's it. I can sit here, and then as soon as we're in the right place, it's yes.
Okay, so you have your bonus goal. Final words of wisdom, because you should have expected this.
The final words of wisdom is, it isn't wisdom. It's just go out there, be yourself, share who you are, and trust that by being brave and being tolerant and being prepared to learn, that you will also be sharing the things that you know with others, and the right alignments will take place. That's the good side of social interactions and social media and algorithms, is they can come together and present the right people.
I love that. So it's be yourself. I truncated it a little bit because I can't type that fast. Be yourself, share who you are, and trust the right alignment will take place.
Fair enough.
And I'm going to add to that just the little bit, and this is the key. If you're not out there, nothing's going to happen. If you stay in your cave and say, that's okay, I'll figure it out later, but doing things a little bit of a time, you're going to see is going to make all the difference. Right?
Right.
Right. Okay. So Keith, this has been, and just remember, we're here. We are your champions. So reach out to Keith, reach out to me. Your egg Keith Spiro is your Twitter. I'm
Right.
at the Deb Method everywhere. And again, all these links will be in the chat. And please join me for Goal Chat every Sunday night on Twitter at 7 p.m. Pacific. And then I will be back next Monday and every Monday at 4 p.m. for Pacific for another Goal Chat Live. So go on out there, outreach, and remember, you can do it.